the one, the only Benzion. Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Iyun with Benzion. Today's daf is Sotah, daf Lamed Vav, number 36. Lamed Vav is, they say Lamed Vav Tzaddikim. There's 36 Tzaddikim in every generation. We assume Tzaddikim is the greatest possible accomplishment in Judaism, but I don't think that's true. I say if you listen to any of my other lectures or shiurim, I don't think that's true. A tzaddik is someone that people say, he appears outside as a tzaddik. Tzaddik is recognizable as a tzaddik. He's not a hidden tzaddik. It's not about tzaddik nister, but he's not a tzaddik nister. He's someone that everyone recognizes. They say he's a tzaddik, right? That means he's righteous. That means it's a bad thing. When I was dating a girl once, when I was younger, I went out with a girl, and after like 3 dates, she dumped me. And the reason she gave was that he doesn't wear his Yiddishkeit on his sleeve. I didn't know if that was a good thing or bad thing at that time. I was like a young kid, 24, 25. After the years, I realized whether she intended it to be a praise, it wasn't a praise for her. She wanted someone who outsidely was very frum, But to me, it's like, no, you don't go advertise your Judaism to everybody. I hear these people making brachas out loud, come on, keep it to yourself. I was very careful, make brachas privately, silently. It's between me and God. You don't have to let the whole world know that you're a tzaddik. And that's what a tzaddik is. Everyone who calls someone a tzaddik, it means their display of their Judaism is too much on their sleeve. It's too much outside. And, that's why you call it tzaddik. And it's supposed to be a private relation between you and God, not that everyone has to know your Judaism. What do you accomplish by everyone knowing your Judaism? So they should praise you. You should have false humility. So Yosef was called Yosef HaTzadik. Whenever they talk about Yosef HaTzadik. And I think it comes from this Gemara over here, because the Gemara says that Yosef was Makadesh Alam Vav Amabez. He was Makadesh Shem Shemayim B'Seiser. He sanctified God's name in private. Yehuda did it in public. Now the story with Yosef was Ashes Potiphar, and it's clear from the Gemara that according to Rabbi Yochanan and either Rav or Shmuel, so 2 out of 3 opinions hold that he intended to sleep with Ashes Potiphar. He wanted to do it. Not only that, he actually started the act, and he stopped in the middle when he saw the image of his father, apparently, in the window. And the Shechva Zera, the semen actually came out. According to Marsha, it actually came out from his Aver. It actually came out. It just didn't come out as forcefully as it would have, because he stopped partially, but he couldn't bring it back entirely. The simple explanation of the Gemara, it came out of his fingernails, but on account of that, he lost 10 Shvatim. He didn't have 10, he only had 2 sons. He was supposed to have 12 sons. He lost 10 sons because, Rashi says, because the semen came out of his 10 fingernails. He lost on account of that. So he wasn't really Makadesh and Shemayim so much B'Seiser. And not only that, he was Zocha to get his name back on the Avnei HaEphod, but he was last. According to Chanina ben Gamliel, we see in the Bryce here, he was at the bottom. The very last name was Yosef. Even though he was the son of Rachel, who was the favorite wife, first son, the Bechor of Rachel, who was the most beloved wife of Yaakov, nonetheless, he was the last. So he lost out. He did. And part of that, why do we call him tzaddik? If the Gemara says he did a big avera over here, committed adultery. And that's, I think, part of what a tzaddik is that there's no one in the world who's not going to do averos. Ein adam ba'aretz asher ya'aseh tov v'le'yachta. We think a tzaddik is someone who can't make mistakes. He doesn't do anything wrong. And that's the image that a tzaddik wants to portray of himself. He's a tzaddik. He does everything right. He's closest to God. But everyone is a human being. And yes, he might look on the outside like he's perfect, but he does have many mistakes. Like Yosef over here, which committed a pretty big avera over here. He lost a lot on account of it. He almost lost everything, but he saved himself partially. But he lost. And that's what every tzaddik does. They cover up what they do in their private life. All these Gedolim books. I hash on this all the time. They always talk about the amazing things these Torah scholars accomplish and how much Torah they learned, how much Torah they taught, how little food they ate, how much little they slept. They don't talk about what happened in their private life. What was it like between them and their wife? What was it like between them and their kids? It's conspicuous. It's left out of all the Gedolim books because the answer is that they didn't have a family life. If you're learning Torah for 24 hours a day or for 18 hours a day, you don't have a life. Anyone who's married knows that it's impossible to do these things. You want to have a good marriage and be a good father. It's impossible. In order to have a family life, you have to be someone who restricts his schedule of learning significantly once he gets married. If you don't do that, it's obvious to anyone who has a good marriage and is a good father and a good husband that it's impossible to do these things. So it's obvious that it's everyone calls him a tzaddik. You're writing Gedolim books on these people. In private lives, they sinned and they made a lot of mistakes. And that's the problem with the tzaddik. That's why I asked my friend over here in the regular share, is it better to be a Benoni or a tzaddik? It better be a Benoni. A Benoni is someone who balances. You're not supposed to always be a tzaddik on the outside. He's called Yodav tzaddik. On the outside, he had a pristine, image, but on the inside, on private, he didn't. He sinned, and I believe that's the difference between Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef. The Gemara in Sukkah says Mashiach ben Yosef actually dies. He dies. The Yetzer Hara kills Yosef, and they talk about the hesped of Mashiach ben Yosef. I'm not going to say who Mashiach ben Yosef is. I know Yeshu, his father's name, I believe, was Joseph. I'm not going to say maybe Mashiach ben Yosef. I'm not going to say it. I don't know. A lot of Christians would say he's the Messiah. But Mashiach ben David is the true Mashiach that the Jews believe in. And Mashiach ben David came from Yehuda ultimately, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. He's Makadesh Yisrael Farhesia, right? He committed adultery, not adultery. He was together with a prostitute, or he thought he was a prostitute. Tamar, it was going to be his daughter-in-law, which you're not allowed to be together with according to the Torah. A prostitute is not a good thing according to the Torah. And yet, he admitted to everybody that he sinned. When you admit that you committed such a big sin in front of everybody to save Tamar's life, right, you are throwing away the label of tzaddik from yourself. Everyone's saying, this guy's not a tzaddik if he did this. He's telling the whole world, I'm not a tzaddik. I'm a regular guy. I have a desire to be the zona, a prostitute. It was my daughter-in-law. I had 2 kids from my daughter-in-law. But he admitted it. And he repelled that label of tzaddik and said, hey, I'm a normal person. I'm just like everybody else. We all have our desires. And I think that's part of the Gemara says, Makadesh Shem Shamayim B'Seiser, is that it's not necessarily a praise for Yosef. It's sort of like a Ganai that he basically, and he kept his life private. Makadesh Shem Shamayim B'Seiser, he kept his life private. And his public image looked, impeccable. He was perfect on the outside. He was tzaddik on the outside. But B'Seiser, right? That's where he was. That's where he was a normal person. He was a normal person, but he didn't let anyone onto that. Yehuda let everyone onto that for Heskia and told him, Makadesh and Shemayim is to be normal. That's the ultimate Kiddush Hashem. Is to be a human being, right? I heard that. Kiddush Hashem, everyone associates people, martyrs who give up their lives for God. And in certain instances, according to halacha, you're supposed to do that. But it's harder to live al Kiddush Hashem, I read, and living al Kiddush Hashem is to sanctify God's name, is to be mundane in the eyes of everybody, to be normal, have a balance between being good and bad, So really that's the difference between Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef. Mashiach ben Yosef, everyone thinks he's a tzaddik on the outside. Mashiach ben David is someone who is normal on the outside and has worked on himself on the inside to be close to God and close to himself. And on the outside, he's a normal person. That's what I believe. I hope you enjoyed today's share. See you in the next one.